The moment two empires collide, history is never the same again. Cities burn, kings fall, and the world quietly shifts in ways most people never realize. What if he told you that the ancient wars you've heard about weren't they just battles for land but brutal power games that shaped how we live today? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't the clean, heroic version taught in schools. This is the real story of ancient wars, raw, violent, strategic, and deeply human. Long before modern weapons, ancient empires fought with iron blades, clever tactics, and something far more dangerous, ambition. When empires collided, it wasn't just armies clashing, it was cultures, beliefs, and entire futures crashing into each other. And often, the side that lost disappeared from history completely, leaving only the winner's version of the truth. Take the clash between Persia and Greece. Most people remember it as a simple story of freedom versus tyranny, but the reality was far more complicated. Persia wasn't a barbaric empire, it was one of the most organized and tolerant powers of its time. Greece wasn't united, it was fractured, divided, and constantly fighting itself. When these two worlds collided, it wasn't about good versus evil. It was about control, fear, and survival. The Greeks didn't win because they were morally superior. They won because they adapted faster, fought smarter, and understood the terrain better than their enemy. Then came Rome. When Rome collided with Carthage, the Mediterranean world was torn apart. The Punic Wars weren't just battles, they were slow, calculated attempts to erase an entire civilization. Hannibal, one of history's greatest military minds, marched elephants across the Alps and humiliated Rome again and again. But Rome didn't win by brilliance alone. It won by refusing to stop. They burned Carthage to the ground, salted its fields, and made sure it would never rise again. History remembers Rome as heroic, but true power often looks like persistence, not justice. In ancient China, empires didn't just collide, they devoured each other. The Warring States period was a time when betrayal was strategy and mercy was weakness. Entire populations were relocated or executed to secure dominance. When the Qin Empire finally unified China, it did so through terror, strict laws, and absolute control. Roads were built, walls were raised, and history itself was rewritten. Ancient books were burned, scholars silenced, and the past reshaped to glorify the victor. When empires collide, memory becomes a weapon. One of the most dramatic collisions in history came when Alexander the Great marched east. His battles against Persia weren't just military, they were symbolic. East versus west, old power versus rising ambition. Alexander didn't just defeat armies. He absorbed cultures. He adopted Persian customs, married into foreign royalty, and blended worlds together. But his empire collapsed the moment he died, proving a harsh truth. Empires built around one man rarely survive him. In the ancient Near East, Assyrians clashed with Babylonians, Egyptians, and countless others. The Assyrians ruled through fear, carving their victories into stone reliefs showing mass executions and destruction. Their goal wasn't just to win, it was to terrify anyone who might resist. And for a time, it worked. But fear creates enemies, and when the Assyrian Empire finally fell, it fell violently, erased by those it once terrorized. Ancient India saw collisions that reshaped religion and philosophy. When kingdoms fought, the battlefield wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. After witnessing the horrors of war, Emperor Ashoka abandoned violence and embraced peace, spreading Buddhism across Asia. His transformation shows something rare in history. Sometimes, when empires collide, the greatest change happens inside the ruler himself. The ancient world was also shaped by clashes between nomadic warriors and settled empires. Steppe tribes like the Scythians and later the Huns didn't fight for cities, they fought for movement and survival. They humiliated mighty empires by refusing to fight on traditional terms. When Rome faced these forces, its rigid structure failed. Empires built on walls struggled against enemies who ignored them. What ancient wars reveal is something deeply uncomfortable. Empires don't fall because they are weak. They fall because they become predictable. They rely on old strategies, old beliefs, and old power structures while the world around them changes. When a new force emerges faster, hungrier, less bound by tradition, the collision becomes inevitable. Another truth history hides is the cost paid by ordinary people. Ancient wars weren't fought by kings alone. Farmers became soldiers. Children grew up knowing nothing but conflict. Cities were looted not once, but repeatedly. Entire cultures vanished without a trace because they stood in the path of expanding empires. Their stories were never written. Their voices were never heard. Religion often intensified these collisions. Wars became holy, justified by gods and destiny. When belief enters battle, compromise disappears. Empires told their soldiers they were chosen, destined to rule, commanded by heaven itself. And when both sides believed this, wars became endless. Technology also decided outcomes. Iron weapons replaced bands, cavalry crushed infantry, fortifications changed how cities survived sieges. Every collision pushed innovation forward, often born from desperation. What accelerated progress? but at a terrible cost. Perhaps the most important lesson ancient wars teach us is this: no more empire believes it will fall. Every ruler thinks their power is permanent. Every civilization believes it is the center of the world, but history proves otherwise. Every empire that collided with another believed it would win forever, and every one of them eventually vanished. Even today, modern borders, laws, and cultures are the result of ancient collisions. Languages we speak, religions we follow, and nations we recognize all trace back to wars fought thousands of years ago. The past isn't distant, it's alive around us. And here is the truth most people don't realize: ancient wars weren't they primitive. They were intelligent, strategic, and psychological. Generals understood fear, morale, deception, and timing just as well as modern commanders. The difference is that ancient wars were personal. Leaders stood on the battlefield. Defeat meant this, not exile. When empires collided, the world didn't just change overnight, it was rewritten slowly, brutally, and permanently. The winners became legends. The losers became footnotes. And history moved forward, carrying scars we still feel today. If you've stayed with me this far, you're not just watching history, you're understanding it. And that's powerful, because when you understand how empires rose and fell, you start to see patterns repeating even now. This channel exists to uncover those patterns, to go beyond textbooks, to tell the stories history simplified or erased. If you want more cinematic, honest, and eye-opening stories about the ancient world, power, and human ambition, make sure you subscribe. Because this wasn't just a story about the past, this was when empires collided, the real story of ancient wars.